So continuing with our work we did in that first video, I've just added a few more columns here. Year 2 sold, these numbers are given to you. I just typed them in, so you can just type them in as well. Let's format these for comma, 0 decimals, right? So we had this many units sold in year 1. The next year, we sold this many units, right? And year 3 and year 4, we're going to use a calculation to figure out what we think might happen. So this might be 2018, 2019, and so on. So in year 3, I'm actually projecting we're going to sell 6% more. Okay. Now, it's this plus 6% of that. So think about putting money in the bank. Okay. If you put $2,000 in the bank at 6% interest, at the end of the year, you want your 6% interest, you can spend it, plus your $2,000 back. Or if you went to the store and you bought a television for $2,350, you owe the store that plus 13% tax, right? So there's about 6 ways of doing this. Let me show you one way. Equal sign, G5 times, now we want to write 6%, so we want 6% of that, and you write it as 0.06. That is actually 6%. You can also write it like 6% sign, okay? So let's press enter. Next year, I'm going to sell 141 more units than this. But that's not how many units I'm going to sell. I'm going to sell this plus this. Think about it, right? 6% more. So in my formula, just double click, let's add G5. So it's last year, 6% plus last year. And next year, we're going to sell 2,491 units, which is that plus 6%, right? So let's double click and take a look. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is simply say, well, if this was how much I started off with, then next year I'm going to sell this plus 6%. So this is 100%. This is all of the units you have right now sold. Plus 6% would be 106%, correct? So you can take this times 1.06. The 1 means all of it plus 6%, or 106%. So next year we sell 106% of what we sold this year. So let's take a look at how much money you make. If you made $100,000 this year, and next year your boss says I'm going to give you 6% more, a pay increase, you're going to make $106,000 next year. You don't just want to make $6,000, and that's 106% of your income. And for next year, this becomes 100%, and you take away or you give more for next year, right? So let's double check here. First way of doing it is last year times 6% plus last year, right? Principal plus interest, or last year plus the new amount. Or you can simply do it as last year times 106%, or just 1.06, right? Either way, you're going to get the exact same answer. Let's copy that down. Looks great, all right? You want to practice that if you're not sure. Now, in year 4, we anticipate a reduction, a decrease. The economy is not going to be good. Customers don't want to buy too much of these products. We're going to see a 2.5% decrease from the year before, which is year 3. Now, imagine you went to a store and they said, look, we're going to give you a 2.5% discount. Well, how do you calculate the discount, right? Let's say you bought a sweater for $100 and the store says, I'm going to give you 5% off. It's the $100 minus 5% of $100. Or because the $100 is 100%, you minus 5% from it, you end up with 95%. Right? So a few ways of doing it. Let's have a look. One is you take last year minus last year times 2.5%. Right? And 2.5% is also written as 0.025 in case that's the way you prefer to do it. Now I'm just going to put it back as 2.5%. Let's have a look. In year 4, we're going to sell 2.5% less of last year. So it's last year minus last year times 2.5%. That's the discount. We're taking that much away. Okay? So take a look. My answer is this, right? 2429. The other way to do it is simply to say, okay, last year, and times it by 97.5%. So think about it. 100% minus 2.5% is 97.5, right? So next year we're only going to make 97.5%. I'm just going to put it back the way we had it before, right? Times 2.5%. So it's last year minus 2.5% of last year. And let's copy that down. Okay? So you want to do a little bit of practice on that as well. So in percent change, here's what I'd like to do. I want to tell my bosses what change we had all the way from year 1 to year 3. We won't do year 4. We'll just go straight to year 3. From here to here, we went from 2,000 to 2,491 units. So I can't just tell people I sold 491 more units in 3 years. I want to give them a percentage because 491 units more, if you were selling a million, is not that much. If you're only selling 500 units, that's almost doubling it, right? So if we do a percentage, it doesn't matter how many units we sold before or now. It's broken down into one number we can all use, which is a percentage. Okay. Now, percentage change from one period to another is the simplest calculation ever. But there's a couple of things you need to know. Okay. What's order of operations? Now, imagine that you made $50,000 last year, and 2 years from now, you think you're going to make $90,000. Fine. Your pay went up by $40,000. That's fantastic. You almost doubled it. But what percentage did it go up, right? The calculation is the new number minus the old number divided by the old number. Now, as long as you know that this is the new number and that's the old number, you'll be fine. So let's take a look. It will be the new number minus the old number, which will give you the difference, divided by the old number, right? It's that simple. That will never change. That's the same in the entire world, okay? The problem is we're doing subtraction first and then division later. But what Excel's going to do is order of operations. When you mix, add, subtract, divide, multiply, the computer anywhere in the world will always do division multiplication first. And in this case, it'll do that and minus that from H5. Now that answer doesn't even make any sense, right? Like, what does that number even mean? We're looking for a percentage. So because we're doing subtraction first, we need this number done first and then the division done later. We actually have to put brackets around it. Okay? Brackets protect what is inside. If you don't put brackets, the division will get done first. If you do put brackets, the subtraction will get done first. And again, you're getting a 0, and that's okay because the number is actually a decimal, right? It's like this. So increase the decimals if you want, but certainly make it into a percentage. So from year 1 to year 3, we sold 24.6% more units. Okay, that's the way you look at it. And let's make it one decimal. Let's copy that down. All right, there we go. So now, relatively speaking, for each different product, we can see, regardless of the quantity and change, we can see this went up the most, 49%, and we can investigate why is Urtex, what's happening? Is it advertising? It is a trend? Is it the young people like this stuff so much? Why are we dropping Orflow so much? What's happening with Orflow? Was it something in the news, something that happened? Was it defective product? Are we not advertising enough? And you, as an analyst, can now react to it and tell people, hey, look, this is what we found, right? That's percent change. Now let's slow down a little bit and do some formatting, okay? First of all, you see these headings? From B3 all the way to J4. I'm just going to use the white plus sign and highlight them. Let's center these. Up here, you've got your center button. Looks a little bit better. Also, I want to put some borders around it. So when you print this on paper, these lines, they don't show up. There is a way to make them show up, but they all show up and they don't look too good. So in order to be more readable for the user, I want to actually have lines. So I'm going to highlight from A3 all the way to J9. And you see up here, there's a borders button, this one. I'm going to click on the arrow. And there's a lot of different borders here, including subtotals, grand totals for accounting. You can even make your own type of borders here. Experiment with those later. But the one we want now is all borders, right? Looks like a window. Click it. And now these lines will print. And they still look a little bit bad, but still we can work with them, right? It's easy if you give somebody a report, they can follow accurately if there are lines. Now the next thing is I want to make the headings pop out a little bit more publishable, something appealing to the eye. And remember, if something is appealing to look at, people tend to look at it, okay? So let's highlight A3 to J4, and up here you see the fill button here, fill color or the paint bucket. Click on the arrow, and I'm going to choose black, a dark color. And if that's black, we want to change the font color over here to, let's say, white, and click outside. Now that pops out, that's readable, publishable, we can do stuff with it, right? Now, out of this list, which one should we focus on? What's the one thing we want to deal with today? Why is Urtex sales very low? Click on it, click on the paint bucket, and let's make it red. Okay, that's how you fill a particular color. Out of this number, what's the highest sales value? It's for Orflow. So we're going to click on that up here. Let's make it, let's say, green. And for percentage change, let's have a look. These numbers here, these two, the negative ones, I want to go here and change the font color to red and maybe even bold it. So when the reader sees this, they say, okay, we need to focus on this. My eyes are there. Why are my eyes here? Because it's green. And let's focus on these as well. So it's a nice little thing to know, just to kind of help you make your document a little bit more readable. Okay? So now let's finish off this tutorial by looking at dates. Sometimes we have documents that are going to be opened up, changed several times over, let's say, a few months or a few years. You want Excel to put an automatic date on it. There's two ways we're going to look at this, okay? First of all, click in the cell F1, and we're going to use a function. So all functions that are automatic, or what we call plug and play functions, meaning you just type them in and they work, they all start with an equal sign. And this function is called today, T-O-D-A-Y. And in some cases, you have to put other things after the function. For example, bracket always exists. Sometimes you put things inside the bracket. But today is simple. You just put an open bracket and then you close the bracket. So Shift 9, then Shift 0, and you press Enter, and it will automatically give you the actual date. And sometimes it'll give you more information. I'll show you how to fix that in a minute. But let's go over to H1 and I'll show you another way of doing it. There's a function called NOW. So notice the equal sign, NOW, open the bracket, close the bracket, and press enter. So in this case, it's giving you the exact same date. So I'm going to show you how to change this, right? If you right click on this date, go to Format Cells, there's a whole bunch of different formats you can use to change this particular cell. So I'm going to go to date, and you want to pick the type of date. So do you want the date in this format, month, day, year, month, day? Do you want to see the time or not? I'm going to choose this particular one, which is called medium date, because it's the easiest, most efficient way to type in. So if you have a lot of dates to type in a column, this is the easiest way to do it. And that's what it looks like. Same thing with this today. If you right click, format cells, you can actually put a timestamp on it as well. And for this one, let's just leave it the way it was. See what that looks like. A little bit different, right? And that's date and time. And when you close the file or you reopen it later on, the date will change, and it keeps versions, of course. You can always go to the file uh, properties of the document to see exactly when the file was last modified and so on. Now in the next few video tutorials, we're going to start doing actual transportation style exercises, and we're going to do them slowly, piece by piece, and there will be a series of videos that you want to follow. And remember, at each step, practice what you've learned, because not everything's going to come to you easily. Some of it might, most of it should. But you want to just practice it. Download the documents, print them, put your hands on the keyboard, and actually do it as often as you need to become uh, very good at it. Okay, so see you in the next video.